You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Matt Zutell. Matt is a record producer, engineer, instrumentalist, and songwriter based in Charleston, South Carolina. In 2012, he started Coast Records, a recording studio / label / production company. While Matt primarily records, produces, and mixes records for bands and artists, he also helps artists with things beyond the music, such as helping them bring their music to market, connecting them with photographers, videographers, content creators, designers, etc. So they are poised for a successful release and develop their brand. He has produced and engineered for Mark Bryan of Hootie and the Blowfish, as well as singles, EPs, and full lengths for bands such as Human Resources, Stoplight Observations, Benny Starr, Driving and Crying, Little Stranger, Beach Tiger, and more. He has also recorded and produced live concert audio footage for Susto, Brave Baby, Hey Rocco, Atlas Road Crew, Doom Flamingo, and more. As a recurring guest speaker in College of Charleston music industry courses, Matt has produced recordings that have granted students acceptance to Berklee College of Music in Boston and the Los Angeles Institute of Music. He spoke on the producer panel at the 2015, 2016, and 2017 New Music Confab at Charleston, South Carolina, alongside Grammy-winning producer Rick Beato. Coast Records won Charleston City Papers 2017 and 2019 Studio / Producer of the Year Award. Matt runs sound for a church in Charleston and is the touring front of house sound engineer for Doom Flamingo. He also plays drums in Human Resources and is a fill-in with other bands on occasion. Former guest Matthew Garber recommended I reach out to Matt, so it's a pleasure to have him on. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a bit about how you got involved, started getting involved in music production.
Growing up, I always played, in garage bands and stuff like that, starting from like middle school. And for whatever reason, I just always, had a tendency to be interested in making the recordings for these bands. And it literally started with a cassette tape and just a little cassette recorder. And then I downloaded this free software on my parents' PC computer called Audacity and recorded with like the little skinny, long, like old school computer mic, And it was literally just setting that up.
I think it's a gooseneck. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah.
Like that.
One of those. And then, just put it in the room with us, and we would just record a live take, and that was it, and then around the time I was in high school, GarageBand became a thing on the Mac computer, and that just like blew my mind and opened up a whole new world to me. And I started just messing around in GarageBand, and the fact that I could kind of create full band and arrangements and make all these instruments and play the drums using a MIDI keyboard, and that to me just opened up this whole world of possibilities, and I could kind of create these, full sounding recordings just sitting in my bedroom with one microphone, a MIDI keyboard, and my laptop, and a pair of headphones. And the way I actually what I think helped me learn a lot about production was I started covering songs, like recreating across a wide spectrum of genres, and I think that was a great exercise for me to really intensely listen to like what's going on in a song, like beyond just like the main chords, like every little subtle thing that might be added into a track. And for me to recreate these sounds, I got a lot better at, how to mess with like synthesizers and tones and like adding effects to things, and what is the cutoff and free, just all kinds of stuff like that. And so I did tons of covers of everything from like pop music to country music to rock, and I think that helped just me learn engineering and sound design and compression and things like that. So between doing stuff like that, recording my bands from over the years and like songs that I had written, I just kind of just always continued to do it, and then around the time I was in college, I started to work with other people that I had met and sort of collaborate. And that just sort of led to, I don't know, working with more artists. And then I remember at one point, my lab partner in geology class actually was like, yo, I'm a rapper, and I'm looking for someone to record my mixtape. And he paid me like $40 a song. But like at that point, I was like, I've made it. I'm getting paid to record people's music. And
yeah, sure.
And so that it just kind of went from there. My goal was just for everything I did, I wanted it to sound a little bit better than the thing I did before it, and just to kind of always get better. And eventually I kind of had developed a catalog of recordings that I had made, and I realized, I had my own personal songs, my band songs, songs that I had recorded for other artists. And so I realized I needed sort of like a brand or an umbrella, to sort of put all these recordings under. So that's where Coast Records came from. It was really just a way to brand it and make an umbrella for all the work that I had done and sort of pool it all together. And that sort of led to me and a few of my friends in college who were singer-songwriters. We kind of created, Coast sort of turned into this little indie label, collective thing where we could sort of all be signed to Coast Records. And it was just sort of about kind of making a scene for ourselves back then. And, and I would help,
Wow.
It was sort of a thing they could release their records on Coast Records, and it kind of made it seem like it was more legit or something like that, you were signed to a label and stuff like that. But
also gave power to many small things to be part of one entity,
For sure. And that was sort of the main point of it too, was the whole is greater than the sum of its parts sort of thing. So if someone were to know about this artist, they might find out about other artists quote unquote signed to Coast because they're on the same label as an artist they like, or if someone just tunes into Coast, they might discover other artists that are on the label. And so it was sort of a way just to sort of lift each other up and to support and help promote things. And, we would just put on shows and do different things like that. And so that was a cool thing. And since then, I stay so busy in the studio with recording that Coast really isn't like a label in the sense of what you would think. But what I try to do with people that I work with, using the guys in human resources, my band, everyone kind of has an area of expertise in design or video or photography or writing press releases and stuff. So if an artist that comes and records with me needs, professional pictures done or a music video made or a logo or album artwork or a website made or anything like that, I can connect them with these guys, and we can sort of cover all the aspects of what you might need as an artist, especially if you're...
it's like an indie 360 or something.
Exactly, yeah, a one-stop shop sort of thing. So
yeah,
and I think that's something that helps separate Coast from other things. Is the buck doesn't stop at the recording. We can kind of help you out with whatever you might need. And so I think it's been a really cool thing to help artists, in that sense.
Yeah. And also, as you were telling me before we started recording, how Charleston is kind of growing into this new indie scene, and lots of stuff are brewing.
Oh, for sure.
I'm sure that having that is helping that. I'm sure
it's nice for sure, and it's cool to see people working with each other and collaborating. And we actually just released a single back in March, and now we're having a few producer friends of ours do remixes of it and stuff like that. So that's been a cool thing to even have your friends and people that you look up to and respect, actually messing with your own music and stuff like that, and seeing what their interpretation of it is. And there's tons of that, and it is a super supportive scene here for sure.
You need to let go a little bit of your ego, I feel to let other people touch your babies. You know what I mean?
For sure. And then it comes back and you're like, man, that's cooler than the original.
Yeah, totally. So you have your hands in a lot of different things. What would you say you're spending the bulk of your time doing?
Mostly engineering and mixing. That recording people. Obviously right now with COVID going on, I'm primarily just mixing. But in normal life, I do sessions, and I pretty much record more on a project base. I don't typically run my studio as come rent it out for the day, and it's more of I work with specific artists or bands who want to work. It's not so much the thing where it's a room to rent sort of studio.
Totally. It's if Matt, then you'll figure out a way to work together. It's not the studio hours are 9 to 5.
Right? Yeah. So I kind of work. My schedule, it can be a little crazy sometimes, just because not everyone I work with is a full-time musician or full-time band yet. So some people can only, they might have a 9 to 5 job themselves and can only record in the evenings or on the weekends, or and then some people are full-time musicians and can record whenever. So just depending on who I'm working with, my schedule can kind of change. It's kind of open always sort of thing to a degree, you know.
How do you find the artists that you work with, or how do they find you?
At this point, you know, Charleston, like I was saying, the scene is very, you know, everyone sort of knows each other for the most part. And I've been living here long enough to, you know, be pretty, tied into the scene. And I also, my live sound job at the Royal American has been a really great supportive, like complimentary job to my studio, because I meet all the bands that come through. I work with them and run sound for them. Cool. So it's a great networking job in that sense. And so, and just word of mouth, like I was saying, you know, a lot of the musicians and bands all know each other, and you put something out, and you know, if someone likes something else that you did or they heard, then like I've had an artist hit me up and be like, I love this record that you did for these people. Like, I want to work with you. It's just, you know, over time and word of mouth and making relationships with people.
That's awesome. So tell me about your workflow. How does it look like? You know, what does it look like when you're starting out with an artist? Do you do pre-production? Do you just like get in the studio and start recording? How does production begin?
It can vary, I think, based on the artist and what their sound is. Sometimes I'll work with a singer-songwriter who they just have, you know, they come in with a song that's just on the acoustic guitar and the vocal, and we need to take it into a full, you know, band arrangement. And so oftentimes I'll hire my bandmates and human resources to be the session players for a singer-songwriter who needs a band. So obviously it starts with the song, and we'll make sure the arrangement's right, the tempo is right, and then we'll usually either... I've been a big fan of actually just getting a band like tracking together live in a room and getting like at least like the main beds put together, like actually playing it all together. You know, learning to record, I was always in my bedroom, so it was just like do one thing at a time and stack it, you know, which I still do often. But now that I, you know, actually have like a studio where I have the space for it and the gear to like actually do a full band, I've been really enjoying actually just getting like a really good take and then like overdubbing the vocals and adding in any other elements that might be needed. So it can depend. I mean, so sometimes it's like, all right, we have a core of a song and we need to build it. And then some bands come in and they're like, man, we got all of our parts down, we're rehearsed, we just want to come in and capture it.
Knock it out.
You know?
Yeah.
So the scale can slide. I've had, you know, some people come in and they're like, I got an idea for a song. I kind of got this one thing and let's just run with that. And then we'll just, you know, kind of get creative and make up stuff and build it and write it on the spot. And, you know, so I think that is what's cool about it, I think, is it's not always like the same approach or formula every time, you know, you kind of just, you know.
It sounds like you're also dabbling in like a bunch of different genres that like require different approaches.
For sure. Yeah. And I kind of slide like, you know, sometimes I have a more heavy hand in like the producer side, and sometimes I'm kind of more of just an engineer and the mixing engineer, just depending on, you know, who they are and what their needs are. A lot of times it's a little bit of both. Like I definitely don't have the approach of like, I'm the producer, what I say goes, it's my way or the highway kind of thing. You know, I try to be as transparent as I can be in my productions. So like, it's not me you're hearing, like
you're hearing the band,
you're hearing the artist, you know,
the artist.
And so,
yeah.
I definitely try to, you know, if I feel strongly about something, I'll, you know, hey, what do you think about this? Or, you know, how would you feel about that? And I just don't have the approach of like, that needs to be this. And like, if you don't agree with me, then we're through, you know, it's like,
it makes sense. Like, I mean, if you've been playing in bands and you've been recording a lot of bands, I feel like that's like that's like more of the go-to approach of like being a little bit more transparent, a little less, this is how we do it. You know what I mean? More like, okay, let's have a conversation and let's see where we want to go. Cause you know, when you're working in a band, like, you know, other people in the band have musical input that's valid, and they understand how things are, they really understand the workings of the music. It's not just like, you know, like a singer-songwriter, let's say if they're going just to a producer, they don't know anything about, you know, production other than just singing a song.
Right.
Then they need more of that, like kind of like hand holding, and you know what I mean?
For sure.
That's kind of can guide or influence your producer approach.
For sure. And I've heard, you know, stories from bands who have worked with other people in the past and stuff like that, and who have had bad experiences like that. And they end up with an album that they just like, they spent all this money to make, and they don't even like it or feel like it's their own at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
Like there's a band in town, they're no longer a band, but the last album they made was like pretty much ghost written by another singer-songwriter. And they went to a producer who like kind of changed their whole sound. And then I think ultimately that